Good morning and welcome back to the morning briefing. It's Thursday, September 29th. This is episode 199. Let me say it again, 199. This is our last and final episode of the morning briefing. We will have all new programming coming to you for episode 200, and we will be rolling out a new format altogether. We're so excited to be announcing that for next week. Join us at the same time, as always, 7:30 for our new programming and formatting. With me, as always, then and now, will be Burt Garland, shareholder with Ogletree Deacons. And together we will continue to bring you practical, timely, and accurate insight into today's workforce. And it will continue to be our goal to keep you informed so you can more effectively run your organization. Burt, I'm excited for next week. I don't know about you, but to be able to do 200 episodes and help our business partners and members and your clients through the day, the HR community and business owners, that has just been extremely fulfilling for me.
I agree. I'm excited for episode 200. Again, we've talked about it before. Who would have ever imagined at the beginning of COVID, when we started broadcasting every single day for, I think, those first couple months of COVID, that we'd be sitting here 2.5 years later on the cusp of closing out 200 episodes. So, yeah, very exciting.
When COVID hit, one of the objectives I had was, for the association to come out in a stronger position post-COVID, not knowing what post-COVID would ever look like, when that would ever occur. And one really good outcome to that has been the morning briefing and our listeners. And I'm just very thankful for those who have been so kind to share their comments with us and participate with us. And I just hope it's been as fulfilling and helpful for them as I know it has been for me and you as well. Let's move on and get on with episode 199 and put this one to rest as well. Today's poll question: what do you believe is the most effective way to avoid unionization? What do you believe is the most effective way to avoid unionization? We have a few answers for you there. Pay fair wages, provide equal opportunities, support strong two-way communications, hire and develop exceptional managers, handle unionization attempts effectively. So you got a few answers. We'd love to have your response and your comments. They're always helpful to us as well. The reason we're bringing this up is because we continue to see in the headlines big brands with attempts by the union to organize. And the most popular brand of late isn't Starbucks, it is Home Depot. And Home Depot has made a significant effort to maintain its union-free status over the years. And under recent times, they've been under what we would say under attack by the unions to organize. Burt, I'd like to get some perspective from you on this. And if I understand it right, you might also have Home Depot as a client, Ogletree does. So we need to be careful, too, as how far you can go and what we should say here.
Yeah, I appreciate the caution there, Phil, and that's exactly right. I just need to temper my remarks and keep things confined to what's being reported in the news these days. And you hit the nail on the head that Home Depot, that's had a long history of remaining union free. They got their first union petition in their history filed up in the Philadelphia area in Pennsylvania in the last week or so. And that means the employees at Home Depot are trying to unionize that facility, that particular store up in Philadelphia. And that marks a big change for Home Depot that has had that long union-free history. And what's really interesting, we've talked a lot on the programs the last, probably the last year. We've had several episodes dedicated to unionization. And what's significant about the Home Depot unionization effort here is it reflects a much broader trend that's taking place in the restaurant and retail industry, sectors of the U.S. economy that traditionally have never seen significant unionization efforts.
Yeah. And so I did some studying for this program, like we always do. And let me share some quotes. I think the guy that's organizing this out in Philadelphia, his name is Quillis, I think. So the first thing I want to do is Quillis is here's some quotes from his. He and his coworkers are calling their union Home Depot Workers United. It's an echo of recent successful campaigns like Starbucks Workers United, Trader Joe's United. And for now, the effort is not affiliated with an established union. So it doesn't have a staff of resources devoted to the organizing attempt. Now, I've experienced that once in my life early on where there was a union behind it. They just didn't come out so clearly and boldly during the petition process. Can you give some insight what's happening in a scenario like that when we know it's not already an established union that's in the forefront on this?
Well, those who know me and who have heard me speak over the last probably 8 to 10 years have heard me talk about like these workers centers over time. And it really started with the Fight for 15, which is an effort that's really been going on for the last 8 to 10 years, probably 10 years, probably closer to 10 years, or maybe I'm even a little short on that with COVID. Maybe it's really 12 years that this has been going on. And what these workers centers are is they are funded by the traditional mainstream unions. Make no mistake about it. And these worker centers appear to be more grassroots efforts by the employees, but the funding for these grassroots efforts are the traditional unions. And
when you say funding, that means there's things that they're doing where they're having employee rallies, campaigns, barbecues, picnics, things like that, where they're bringing employees and their families together to get the message out to other workers and to the workers' families.
Yeah,
buttons, campaign stickers, all these types of things. That's what you mean when we talk about where the funding is coming from.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right. It takes money to run a union campaign. Even if it appears to be grassroots, there's oftentimes legal counsel involved, and there's folks who really have to walk the grassroots organizers through the organizing process and interact with the National Labor Relations Board and fill out that union petition. And make no mistake about it, these worker centers that developed, again, going back probably to the 2010 area where the Fight for 15 was really becoming quite prevalent. Those were the ones where Fight for 15, they were protesting at the fast food restaurants, McDonald's in particular, protesting for a $15 an hour minimum wage. And it was really the SEIU, the Service Employees International Union, the UFCW, the United Food and Commercial Workers Union. They were funding these worker centers, and they have been funding them all along. And I've got in my possession some communications that had been put out by those unions over time, supporting these workers, workers centers. And so again, I just want people to understand that it is not necessarily the grassroots effort that it appears to be. It is much more organized and much more targeted than that.
So Bert, how can that be the case, right? As management, you're not allowed to go out and lie to workers or scare workers or do any of those types of things because you have control of the purse strings necessarily. But the union, how can they sit and go, no, we don't have any involvement in that? And I've seen the same types of information pieces come out that are just completely inaccurate and 100% lies at times to persuade people, but there's no repercussion to the union for that.
Yeah. The National Labor Relations Board has been very clear over the years in its case law that employers may not lie or misrepresent things to employees during the course of a union organizing campaign. In fact, there's really 4 things that employers are prohibited from doing. If employers do these things, they would be considered unfair labor practices. And basically, employers cannot spy on the employees, employers cannot make promises, the employees cannot interrogate the employees, and they cannot threaten the employees.
So back in the day, we used to call that the spit rule.
Yeah, the spit rule, spit test, or the TIPS rule, TIPS, depends on how you reorganize the letters. PITS, PITS. There's only three ways I've been able to figure out how to spin that one. But one of those things, along with promises, because a company cannot make promises, the flip side of that is a company cannot misrepresent things to employees either. And the NLRB, like I said, has been very clear, and the courts have adopted this position, that employers, because they control those purse strings, they have the ability to make good on their promises. If an employer says, if you vote this union down, we're going to give you $1 an hour raise, the employer has the ability to make good on that promise. The board and the courts are also equally clear that the union can make promises and can basically misrepresent things to employees because they don't actually have the ability to make good on anything that they say during a campaign. And the courts and the NLRB say that employees are sophisticated enough to know those things, that all that the union offers really is promises. At the end of the day, it's up to the company to decide whether or not it's going to fulfill any of those unions' demands.
Yeah. So I know you and I have been involved with this stuff for 30 years, and we've seen some ebbs and flows over that time, and we've been in campaigns that's been successful and unsuccessful, and negotiations that's been successful and unsuccessful, and so on. I kind of feel like we're in a little different age right now today, in a place that we haven't been in my career. And one of those scenarios, and some of that is because of, one, the economy, not just maybe because of we're doing so well and there's the threat of the recession. We've lived through that before, and we've experienced that. But it's kind of like the home buyer's market. This is an employee's market, and we've never had that in our lifetime before. And that kind of tips the scale, because I think employees are feeling a little bolder, a little bit stronger. And if I use some quotes again from the Home Depot article, right? We're tired of coming in and busting our ass. They work really hard, and it's been a struggle during the pandemic. People relate to those types of quotes, right? And at the same time, they're seeing inflation go up, which we haven't seen before like this in our lifetime, while they have job options. So what's the harm or the risk is what I think we're fighting, which makes it a little bit of a new game for the employer to be aware of, when people feel like this is their moment, this is when they might come out and make an effort.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, Phil, what you just described. And I guess I would step back and I would go back to President Biden's campaign when he was running for office for the presidency. He made promises that he was going to be the most pro-union president ever. He literally said that. That's a quote. And he also thanked the unions for putting him in the White House. And we have to view everything that's going on these days in that context. The unions have complete support from the White House and from the federal government. And, one of the things that there's sort of a disconnect. It's great, if you think about it, that employees want to unionize, they want representation in the workplace, they want to fight for higher wages, but it all contributes to sort of that vicious cycle that who do you think's ultimately going to be paying for this? Business is going to figure out a way to adjust. And the fear is that right now, with the economy the way it is, with inflation really out of control, I think the numbers are going to come out today that will confirm that the United States officially went into recession back in the spring. I think those numbers are actually going to be coming out today, like I said. And I think that the concern is that that's fine if employees unionize and There are a lot of statistics out there that show that companies' costs of operating in a unionized environment go up anywhere from 15 to 40%, their costs associated with labor. And what does that mean? That means that those costs, those additional dollars that they're spending in time and resources on dealing with the unions, paying perhaps higher wages, that's going to show up in prices. Okay, that's number one. Number two, the big problem is that let's take a fast food restaurant, for example, and I've talked about this many times on the show. It all started way back when people, instead of them filling your drink behind the counter for you, they pass you a cup. Or now they don't even pass you a cup. The cups are over by the drink area in a lot of fast food restaurants. And what the restaurants concluded a long time ago is that the cost of allowing people to fill and refill their drinks is less than the labor and the time that it took to refill the drink behind the counter. And so business found a way to adjust. And eventually, this has led to the kiosks that we're seeing in restaurants. They're finding that it's less expensive, more efficient for people to order through a kiosk. And what that means is that let's say you had 2 employees at a McDonald's working for $10 an hour, and those wages then go up to $15 an hour. Well, what's going to end up happening is business will adjust. The business will find a way to do that job with 1 employee. And the company's actually going to ultimately save money if people unionize. They're going to, concern is that they're going to unionize themselves out of business. We saw this happen in manufacturing for decades. And, manufacturing has automated, become more efficient. It's been offshored. And during the Trump administration, there was sort of a resurgence in manufacturing in the United States without a resurgence in unionization. Yeah. I think what the Biden administration has tried to do is build on that resurgence in manufacturing, and now they've tried to add the unionization piece back on top of it in the manufacturing sector. But really, what I'm focused on these days is the restaurant and retail sector in those industries. And ultimately, it is this vicious cycle that if companies unionize, if the employees unionize, costs are going to go up, things are going to be more expensive, and those costs are either going to get passed on, which will contribute to inflation, or the employer is going to find ways to do the same job with fewer people, which could contribute to recession. And, what I'm trying to impress upon people here is that if the wages go up, and statistics do show that unionized workers do typically earn more than non-unionized workers. But here's the rub. They really don't earn much more than the cost of their union dues. So basically, the employees, even though they're getting more money in their paycheck, they're not actually taking home much more money, if at all. They may actually be taking home a little bit less after they pay their union dues. And that extra money, who's paying for it? Ultimately, the consumers and the users of the goods and services.
Right. And Nick, I don't know if we can bring up the poll question. I'm getting a lot of comments here about where is the all of above. The answer should be F, all of above, as it relates to the poll question. But there's no doubt there's a balance between what more I gain with the union and what it costs for me to have union. The other thing I would point out to that, and this has always been something that was really a sticking point for many people, was the political investment that the union makes with their dues and how hard it is to back out of that. I know that there is technically a way to do that. And not have your dues support or not pay for fees associated with political positioning. But that's a really difficult thing to do. And then you start to outcast yourself amongst your brotherhood in that point, if you tend to lean differently than the union does in your political views.
Yeah. That's exactly right. And I think it'd be probably a good time, Phil, to take a quick peek at the chart here, the poll
Okay,
results.
good. Let's take a look at that, Nick.
All right, it's up. For our viewing audience and for those in the car not watching because they're being safe, we have the highest result here. So what do you believe is the most effective way to avoid unionization? We have 53.3% support strong two-way communication. So sounds like people feel like they're doing the right things. It's just a matter of, do the employees understand that the right things are being done?
Yeah, and let me just comment on that real quick, Nick, because there's so much to talk about in the next 9 minutes. But in every union campaign I've been a part of, communication has been a significant issue. Up until the point that when management starts holding their meetings, employees are going, yeah, now you're talking to us, right? See, the union got you to the table to talk to us because you didn't hold these meetings. You didn't talk to us like this before the threat of the union. See, the union already won. Bert, I'm sure you heard comments of that same nature. And I think that's one of the challenges for employers today is to create that channel of communication like you would to avoid the campaign versus waiting until you have a petition and or campaign.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And in the poll results, first of all, I want to make it clear, and there's a couple of comments on the chat that all of these things are important, and that's exactly right. All of these things are important, and I want to stress that. There's when I do union avoidance training, I ask a question generally. I ask people to rank what are the reasons employees typically unionize. What are the top reasons? And I'll give a choice of about 10 items there, and I ask the supervisors to rank those things. And it starts with job security, good working conditions, full appreciation of work performed, company's loyalty to employees, good pay, feeling quote unquote in on things, tactful discipline, promotion and growth, interesting work, sympathetic help with personal problems. And I'll ask for that ranking, and then I'll put up what a national survey of employees shows as the number 1 through number 10 things that employees actually value. And number 1 on there is full appreciation of work performed. And number 2 is feeling in on things. Number 3 is sympathetic help with personal problems. It's all of those things that really get to what the poll is showing here. It's support for strong two-way communication. Yeah. It really boils down to good, excellent supervision. And when you take the strong two-way communication on the poll and hire and develop exceptional managers, and we're at almost 80% of our or the folks who are listening to this program who are saying strong supervision is really how you avoid unionization. And that's exactly
how
right.
you invite them in. Because in most cases where I had to go in and help with union campaigns, the supervision was not as strong as it needed to be.
That's exactly right.
Created the communication problem, the appreciation problem, and so on. And it's astonishing today the number of employers who, because they're busy, and I get it, they're not developing young supervisors at the rate that we were 10 years ago. Because we're busy, we can't afford to take them off the line. And we're in a little bit of a catch-22 here as business owners, chicken and egg. What do I do? When do I do it? How do I do it? What comes first? But it's critical to give people those skills and not assume that they have them or will be practicing them without clear direction to do so.
Well, and I'm a little reluctant to use the phrase in light of the hurricane that just hit in Florida. But it really has been a perfect storm for unionization these days. And like I started out by saying, we have a presidential administration that is fully supportive of unionization, and that has trickled down through every aspect of the president's administration, through the NLRB, the Department of Labor, the EEOC. Every one of those agencies is packed with people who have either come up through the union ranks, or have worked for unions, or have had pro-union jobs in the past. And so we have that, and then we also have COVID, which we've talked before that there's an estimated 5 to 7.5 million people who are literally missing from the workforce. And one of the things that we've seen is in the wake of COVID is that the employees who are coming to work, who are showing up every day, and as you said, the organizer for the Home Depot store said that everybody's coming in and busting their ass and working hard. The employees who are showing up are fatigued. They're exhausted, and they literally have been doing more with less. And we've seen a lot of incidents of employees getting mad at customers, customers getting mad at employees. We've all probably seen the signs up in certain businesses saying, please be kind to the staff. We're doing our best, those types of things. And so you do have this sort of perfect storm with the workforce, the people participating in the workforce down significantly in light of COVID, and coming out of the pandemic and presidential administration. The unions helped put Biden in office, and this is payback. His agencies are trying to help facilitate the organizing. One thing that I don't want to forget to do, I sent Nick a graphic that if Nick, you could put this up on the screen just to really show people the union business decline. And this is a chart that I maintain, and the sources for this are the Bureau of National Affairs and the DLR, which is a daily labor report. So these are actual numbers. And if you look back to 1974, almost 23 or about 23.4% of the private sector workforce was unionized. And you can look at this chart, and as I move through the years, starting in 2010, I go every year. There are some gaps at the beginning. I'm going every couple or so years. And then in 2010, I start tracking it year by year here. And what you could see is if this was your business curve, if this was your profitability curve, your company would probably be out of business. And it's not a good trend for the unions. And you can see that even with Biden in office last year in 2021, unionization actually ticked down from 2020, which was 6.3%, down to 6.1%. That means that of the private sector employees in the United States, only 6.1% are unionized.
Yeah.
These unions are desperate to try to turn this curve around.
Yeah, and that's what scares me, Bert. That's what worries me is when your back is against the wall, you're going to come out slugging.
Yep.
And there's a lot of passion supporting that 6.1% and the money and the organizing that goes behind that. I want to just address a couple more points with that, because I think their attack on the retail markets creates a concern. So I just want to read a comment here by Julie. Julie's basically saying they've had a union since 1970. Currently, new employees are not joining the union. Since the union steward has retired, people are not even stepping up to take that position and volunteer to be the steward. And I just want to play that forward a little bit to these retail sectors, like a Starbucks as an example. To me, Starbucks making coffee, to me, is not a career. It's a job. And most of the union campaigns I've been involved with are where people are working in a career style position, an employer for life type role, going back over 30 years. Well, I don't think people see employment for life like we used to, right? So there's different opportunities now. And the people who organize the union today, even if they're not salts within an organization and creating that opportunity for the union campaign, they just probably won't even work there within a short period of time. The turnover is so high, and then you're stuck with it. And the people that wanted it aren't even there anymore. No one's there 2 years later because they've all moved on to another job somewhere else. You know, McDonald's filling sodas and making hamburgers was a job that kids did. Or, you know, maybe someone did a little extra part-time, but it wasn't my career position in that sense. That is an example, I think, of the desperation that they're in. And then the other comment I want to get to is Patricia was asking about, you know, how do you help managers take the time to develop staff when there's a labor shortage and people just walk off the job and quit when you address the discipline. And I think in Patricia's case, you have to get that development so we know how to make those messages from the supervisor in a way that they don't walk off the job. And you can't get there. I know it's chicken and eggs, Patricia, but there's small training bites that we have to do. There's 2-hour segments that we have to do. We can't maybe send people away for 3, 4, 5 days, single day learning sessions, but you can do it in smaller bites. And I know AIM has a lot of solutions for that to help with those types of things. Bert, I don't know if there's any last closing comments here you want to make before we get going, but we could talk for hours on this.
We could. Yeah, I just would tell people that, you know, watch out for the signs of union organizing. We can cover those at some point, but if you see some of those more visible signs of authorization cards in the workplace, etc., strange people showing up at the workplace, groups of employees meeting with each other in the workplace, those are some outward signs of union organizing, and you need to be on top of that. There's again, not just taking aside the wage issue, managing a unionized workforce is much more difficult than managing a non-union workforce. Your ability as a supervisor to discipline employees, to train employees, you're inserting a union into that role as a third party between you and the employees. And anytime you add that to the mix, it creates inefficiency and prevents business from being able to rapidly adjust to meet the demands of the outside.
I just got to close, Bert, because you and I are balanced. We always bring all angles here, and the GOAT has responded. He's online. For those that are listening for the first time, the GOAT is our friend Dave. He's always online. He brings balance to the perspective. I just got to read his quote before we go. Just wondering why anyone is surprised at recent regrowth of unionization. The wage and wealth gaps have grown in the last 30 years, are well established. To blame the Obama and the Biden administration is tired. If consumer is king, then hospitality and retail workers will be more in demand, no doubt. They won't tolerate being at the bottom of the rung. I've heard you both complain about customer service, most not being very attractive employment to many folks. Your presumptions that employees will be paid fairly and generous is unbelievable. To say that employers will actually save money after unionization needs to be substantiated. I think you will have plenty of work resisting organization for the next decade. For the record, my background is probably more like yours than you might imagine. Parents were anti-union, father negotiated and complained about union reps, college-educated professional, etc. Thought trickle down was the right 40 years later, believe it's been proving wrong. Dave, I would tell you, I'm on the other end of that. My parents were union. I grew up in a union family. Every one of my uncles and family members are a part of a union. I would tell you, I am not anti-union. I just try to bring the balanced look at this, Dave. And I can see some of your points here. And also, Dave, you're going to lose your status at GOAT. You keep thinking this way.
And Phil, just really quickly, I know we're over our time, but Nick, if you could throw up that unionization graphic one more time.
He also says he loves us both here. Follow that, Dave. We love you.
And we love Dave's comments as well. But Dave, you want substantiation for for what's happening with unions. Take a look at the chart here. Even under Obama and under Trump and under Biden, that trend, that curve is still going down, and it's going to continue to either be flat or go down. So there's your substantiation.
All right, we have episode 200, new programming coming up for you next week at 7:30 Central Time. We can't wait to see you then. We're excited to have that. Thank you so much for all the comments and participation over the last 199 episodes. We will see you next week for a big unveiling. Bye-bye.
Tell your story, promote your products, communicate with your employees and customers vividly, dynamically, and powerfully. Whether it's a company video, recruitment video, online training, or live meeting, Feature Group can help you, from scripting to highly polished finished production. Whether it's live or on demand, we have the skills and equipment to wow your audience and drive your message home. Feature Group USA, the one-stop shop for all your broadcasting needs.